What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Dante Frames, where we study film like it's game tape. And before we get into this week's watch, be sure to follow Dante Frames for more cinema moments. So this week, I caught Slanted, and I went into this completely blind. And honestly, this movie is a sleeper. Slanted is a body horror film directed by Amy Wang about a Chinese-American teenager named Joan who undergoes cosmetic surgery to alter her features in order to fit white beauty standards and become prom queen. And that decision slowly spirals into something much more nightmarish. Now, on paper, I'm not gonna lie, there's something a little cringe about that premise, but the way the film leans into that actually becomes part of what makes it creative. What I appreciated right away is that the film does a really good job setting up the story and the world. Once it gets going, you understand exactly the kind of ride you're on. The film stars Shirley Chen and McKenna Grace as the split leads, along with Vivian Wu, Fang Du, Maitreyi Ramakrishnan, and Emily Zilber. And I ain't gonna hold y'all, once you get over the ridiculousness of the premise and go for the journey and the ride and see how grounded in reality the performances are, you'll see how good this movie is. At times, this film feels like it's pulling from classics like Mean Girls and the recent The Substance, and then other times it just felt like one big SNL skit. So yeah, the film gets ridiculous, but it knows it's ridiculous, and because the movie is self-aware, I stayed engaged. What surprised me is how balanced the script actually is. It's juggling comedy, horror, sci-fi, and drama, and for the most part, it checks all those boxes. This film is genuinely hilarious, but then it'll turn around and hit you with moments that are actually heartbreaking. And again, the performances really help sell that. Shirley Chen anchors the film with this tunnel vision intensity as Joan, and McKenna Grace brings in a completely different energy once the transformation begins. And Maitreyi Ramakrishnan, she also adds a lot of emotional grounding to the story. Some of the scenes really land because of the tunnel vision of the main character. You're not just watching the story unfold, you're experiencing how distorted the world becomes through her perspective. And there were definitely story turns in this film I did not see coming. But what stayed with me most is the message. And at its core, this film is about being happy with who you are and not trying to fit into someone else's idea of beauty. And I thought this film buttoned that theme up pretty nicely. And look, you know when a theater claps after a movie, you know that means something. And one of the things that came to mind when I was watching this film is how I get a lot of people in my comments talking about there are no good movies out now. And I just don't think that's true. Like, there are definitely gems out there. The reality is there are a lot of films that just don't have the marketing machines that the major studios have the money for, so they can slip under the radar. Slanted is one of those films, and there may be no big stars or massive campaign behind it, but sometimes that's exactly why a film like this works.